What do you got, Coach? 3 things that all coaches need.
Who would you put on your Mount Rushmore of coaches?
New York or the Aces? Definitely going with the Aces.
All right, 4th down. Who has the tougher job, coaches or officials? If you could have any superpower, what would it be and why?
Texas is different. Welcome back, everybody. I'm your host. My name is Michael Prejean, better known as Coach P. Each week, I get the opportunity to team up with coaches across the state and across the country to break down the wins, the lessons, and everything in between. This week, I am teaming up with Coach Brian Cope of Lake Belton. Let me tell you a little bit about this guy. He has been married to Allison for 9 years. He's got a 6-year-old son who goes to elementary on site, and he will be the only first grader next year that's going to have varsity athletics on his schedule. He's got a master's degree in accounting that he uses every day to coach football. We definitely got to talk about that. He's starting year 20 in education, 4 at Spring, 1 at Cy Woods, 6 at A&M Consolidated, 3 at Belton, and now he is in year 6 at Lake Belton High School as the campus athletic coordinator and head football coach. His dad was a football coach. Mom was a business teacher. So it's only right that he's certified in business. Y'all welcome to the stage with your real hands or your virtual hands, whether you're watching or listening, Coach Brian Cope. Coach, how you doing today, man?
Good, man. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. You and I worked together a long time ago at Spring High. And, man, I've followed your career and followed this podcast. And, man, really very fortunate to have an opportunity to tell you my message and also tell you a little bit about me.
Awesome. Thank you for your time. We're going to start here. This segment is called Talk That Talk. So, Coach, I want to give you the opportunity to talk about all of the good things going on in your program, in the Lake Belton athletic program overall, in your building, and in your community. Coach Cope, talk that talk.
Sure. We just finished up year 5. We're rocking and rolling at our elite camp, which is our summer strength and conditioning, averaging over 450 kids, 7th through 12th grade.
Big time.
Which is a great start to the 25-26 athletic year. This past year, we finished 28th in the Lone Star Cup, which is an important award as a campus coordinator. It's the highest points we've ever gotten, and it's also the highest 5A finish that we've ever received. 5 years ago, Lake Belton High did not exist, and we went 2 years of 4A, and then now this is starting year. We finished up year 3 of 5A, getting ready to start year 4, and just had an unbelievable success. Our softball team beat the number 1 team in the nation for their only loss this year. Our baseball team went 3 rounds deep. We've been very, very fortunate. We made the playoffs in 16 of 17 sports. Also, in the last 5 years, we've started wrestling in our school, which has been really, really big for our athletic program. And then we've also started unified track. And one of the things we really like here at Lake Belton is to be able to compete in everything and give our kids exceptional opportunities, which has been a lot of fun. For football, we're 41-11 in the last 5 years, and have had a great start to it with some outstanding kids, some great coaches, and a really, really good community that cares about football. And so it's been a lot of fun to build that, and we're looking forward to taking another step in this next year where we return quite a few starters for football, and looking forward to it. But overall, looking forward to our athletic department and our athletic teams trying to get in the top 25 in the Lone Star Cup, and really trying to put them in opportunities to be successful.
Lots of good things happening up there in Lake Belton. 16 out of 17 sports in the playoffs this year. Coach, I am not familiar with unified track and field. That's what you said, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so kind of educate us, those who may be watching or listening who aren't familiar with the unified track and field.
Sure. So the UIL has started a unified athletic program where that involves they partner up for track. Basketball, they do this as well, where you will have a non-special ed kid on the court or on the track. And you also have a kid who has special ed services. Doesn't necessarily matter which special ed services that is, but they will have them. They compete throughout. The state championships are held at Pflugerville-Hendrickson High School. And so they'll have a 4x1 where you'll have two non-special ed services kids and two special ed services kids that run in those meets. And our girls basketball coach, Tiffany Barnes, has done an outstanding job with that program. And continued to grow it. And it's been a lot of fun. We just completed our second year of that. And it's been a very successful program that gets kids an opportunity to pursue a sport that they can't be on the varsity track team. So it gives some kids an opportunity to compete in a different sport. But I think one of the biggest things that I'm a core believer on is a kid gets high school for 4 years, and we want them to try to compete in everything they can. But we also want them to be involved. The more they're involved, I think the more successful they are. I even talked to a freshman today about thinking long-term. Hey, one day you're going to walk across the stage in graduation. Mm-hmm. What do you want to be remembered by, and how do you want to be able to achieve that? And then a lot of kids say a lot of great words, but words to us in this coaching business, they mean a little bit. You got to have the drive, the internal drive first, which comes from the words, but your actions mean so much more. And so you got to continue to prove your words day in and day out.
That's good stuff. Lots of good stuff happening at Lake Belton, in the Lake Belton community. So I'm going to go ahead and put this up. Hey, y'all go and follow Coach Cope. All right. IG. See all of the great things that are going on there. Keeping kids involved, making sure they have a long-term outlook. So you can follow Coach there at Coach Coke 23. Dad was a football coach. Mom was a business teacher. You have a degree in accounting, a master's degree in accounting that you use every day to coach football. So when I read that, I was like, okay, I got to ask Coach about this. So Coach, what does that look like?
Yeah, so when I played football at Trinity University, had an opportunity to get my master's in accounting. When that happened, I was going to be an intern for Arthur Anderson, and they forgot to audit Enron in the Houston scandal that took place. And so I went to the business world and kind of utilized that a little bit, but it wasn't competitive. And I was sitting in a desk all day. And, right now as a campus coordinator, I average anywhere from 12 to 15,000 steps a day. 20 in football season. And that's kind of who I am. I can't just sit at a desk the whole time. And so now, does my master's in accounting help me with budgets and numbers and analytics and being able to study the game in a different way from a football standpoint, but also making sure that our budgets are right and being able to talk to people about that and long-term projections of what we need to do and where we need to accomplish some things, all the way from our personal budgets in football and all of our sports, but also in our booster club to be able to do that. And so, but I haven't worked for 20 years. I did work for my first 3 years after college, but I haven't worked for 20. I've loved every minute about what I've done in this business.
So being a numbers guy, can I call you a numbers guy?
You can. I married a math teacher. That's how much of a numbers guy I am. Okay.
So are there some things that you can just kind of see?
To me, that's what I love about the game of football. There's chess pieces that kind of go on that. And that's why I can't ever coach in Canada, because they got 12 people instead of 11. And so I can tell you where those 11 people are and really like looking at statistics from how I'm an offensive guy. So how a defense plays on a certain amount of coverages or a certain amount of where a certain D lineman is, and really enjoy studying that piece and equating it back to numbers. If something's done 95% of the time, then that's what we're going to work on to try to be ready for that and understand we know the 5% are curveballs. We all get those as coaches, but we want to be able to be ready for what we've studied and been prepared for.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So we're talking about tendencies. We're gonna look at tendencies. We're gonna look at what's likely going to happen, and then every now and then you get a curveball. You got to keep your hands back on the curveball. Make sure you swing through it.
No doubt. That's what I teach my kid playing T-ball, but at least the ball's on a tee.
There it is. There it is. Okay, so you said you worked 3 years. You haven't worked in 20, but you did work 3 years. Was it during those 3 years when just think coaching might be my thing?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up at a field house. I can remember at Cy Creek High School where my dad was coaching, I jumped in a giant puddle of mud before family pictures, and there's still a picture with I'm soaked, but I'm still in the family picture. My dad had an opportunity to coach me in high school, which was a blast, and I loved every single minute of it. Ironically, it was a new school that took 2 years before they could play varsity football, which is what we did at Lake Belton. And so it's been kind of fun to see the similarities on some things that way. And I've known that I wanted to be a part of it. I love the game of football. I love sports. What I love about my campus coordinator job is that, growing up, baseball was my first love. I played in middle school. I played football, basketball, baseball, track, and tennis. So I went out, this was last week, I went out to our tennis camp and I hit a few now. It wasn't pretty. I'm not in my shoulder's not in good shape, but that makes it fun to me because you get to go out there and be around sports and kids and watching them develop. And there's a picture in my office of my kid going to tackle a dummy at our water tackle station at football camp when he was going into kindergarten. And that reminds me that, man, all these kids start somewhere.
That's good. So you mentioned playing for your dad. So playing for your dad as a player, was it extra pressure or do you feel like you had an advantage?
Well, both. I had an advantage because I knew the offense backwards and forwards. So I knew exactly, and he was the OC and the play caller, so I knew exactly what he was looking for. I didn't call him dad on the field. I called him coach because I didn't want to separate myself in any way possible. Mm-hmm. I did have to do some bear crawls my senior year because I called him dad because practice needed that as a leader to liven up the moment a little bit, which was fun. Yeah. But I think that was a key piece of me learning that you can't, like, the expectations don't change. It doesn't matter who you are. If you're D1 or D3 or D none, and the standard's the standard. And we've kind of done that. We were fortunate to have Micah Hudson here, who was the number one player in the state 2 years ago at wide receiver. And if he was late, he did the same amount of bear crawls as the JV kid. You got to be able to make sure you keep the standard, and not lower it for anybody. I can remember my junior year in high school. I started some because of injury, but I did not win the job. It was just because of an injury situation. And I think that created a tough deal for him. My senior year, there left no doubt in that process. I will tell you this, I coached for him my first job at Spring. He was the OC, and it was a lot easier to miss a block as a son and a player than have one of my kids miss a block and have to hear it as an adult. Which I didn't think would be the case, but it was fun to be able to coach with him for 4 years. Okay, so I'm hearing you say I had to earn the job. That sounds like a quarterback to me. I played quarterback in middle school in 7th and 8th grade, and then we had some really good quarterbacks at Cy Falls where I played high school ball. And so I moved to receiver after the second day of two-a-days, and then went and played receiver for freshman A, JVA, and then 2 years on the varsity. And then played in college for 4 years. Okay. So, Coach, I'm a basketball guy. I can watch football. I know what's going on, but I don't know anything about X, Y, Z. Which one's the slot guy? He's the A in our offense, the A or the B. The A or B. Jacked up. So, were you a inside or outside guy playing receiver? I was an outside possession guy. So And it was back in the day where you could cut block. So it was a little bit easier to play wide receiver then than it is right now in 2025. There was some different rules that I think made it a little bit easier.
I'm hearing Hines Ward type.
Sure. I could run a good curl route. Let's say that.
Oh, man. All right. So married a math teacher, master's degree. Mom was a business teacher. Dad was a coach. Eventually, you decide to coach. So who are the coaches that you looked up to other than your dad, outside of your dad? So if you had to say, okay, these are the guys that I'm going to put on my Mount Rushmore of coaches, who would go there?
Sure. I mean, I think it starts for me with Nick Saban. His attention to detail was thoroughly impressive. I think also what Urban Meyer did with spread offenses, kind of starting through and zone read type stuff. You kind of take from everybody in this business and learn from a lot of studying and reading those guys. I think has really kind of helped me a little bit, but also not necessarily coaches, but I think like John Gordon books are really, really good from a leadership standpoint. One of my favorite things, we're off next week because of the July 4th holidays. So we'll be at a lake house with our family and I'll read a whole bunch. And that's kind of a way for me to be able to reset. So I really like looking at like reading different things to be able to try to be ahead of the curve, and not only in the game of football, but also in the game of leadership, which is so much that I think you have to realize when you move from a coordinator chair to a campus coordinator chair is a big jump.
Okay, so let's talk about leadership just a little bit. So I like to read as well. I don't know, so you can kind of see my bookshelf back here. I read a lot of different stuff, especially outside of the season. Read a lot of leadership type stuff. So if you had to recommend, let's say 3 books.
So I think I would start with Twin Thieves. That's our leadership book that we read with our 24 leaders in off season. That was great. Talks about a fear of failure and a fear of judgment, which I think so many high school kids have, especially now in a social media generation. And really talked about what you have to do to build those, to cultivate those relationships with your teammates to be able to be ready for that. I also think it's Leading for God's Sake is a really good book that I've been a part of. And then the third one is anyone that John Gordon writes. So when there's a new arrival, I really like to read it. I think Winning in the Locker Room First is a good one. I think that you got to be able to try to win the locker room day in and day out. And so, after practice, that's where my time is spent most of the time, because that can solve some problems. Or, hey, I'm not going to say that we're not going to coach hard at Lake Belton. We are. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure and check up on kids. And so at the last interaction when they go to class is because we practice in the morning, because we don't start school till 8:50. I know that y'all Houston people can't quite understand that. Y'all prefer practicing at least football in the afternoon when it's 105 degrees. But you're in a gym, so it's 70 to 80 wherever you are.
Right. But listen, in August, it's going to be hot as Hades. So our guys are going to be out there at 6 a.m. anyway.
Yep.
They're gonna be out there at 6 a.m. Okay, let's go back through this list. So, Winning in the Locker Room by John Gordon, or any John Gordon book. And this is for people who may be watching or listening to this later. Lead for God's Sake. I've actually read that one a couple of times, bought that one for my coaching staff. What was that first book again, Coach?
Twin Thieves.
Twin Thieves.
Yep. And it talks about fear of failure and fear of judgment. And It's a really good, it kind of goes through a team who has been successful, but not necessarily in the playoffs, and talks about how connected you got to be able to be great. And I think the more connected you are, the better. One of the things that we've done and we've taken from these book studies is we actually started this last year, and it kept us together in a lot of tough times, was we do small groups. I mean, I have a varsity football team of anywhere between 60 and 70 kids. Yeah. We break those kids up in our in our lock-in to start. But what we did this past year that we will continue from now on is we kept those small groups throughout the season. And my leadership council was my small group. So we would answer five leadership or relationship or pulse check type questions. And we went through each and every week, and I kind of related the questions to what the theme of the week was. But then they got in their small – so each leader has a small group along with a coach. And it really kind of kept us connected, fighting for each other. We won 3 overtime games, and we were 5-2 in 1-score games. So there was a lot of animosity that could have taken place and a lot of adversity that we had to fight through. But our kids did it. And I think one of the reasons was the connections that we had.
I love that. 5-2 in 1-score games, 3 OT games. That shows that that's built before you get out there on the field. Coach, that's good stuff right there. So the other thing you mentioned is moving from that coordinator's job to that campus coordinator's job. In basketball, we talk about moving over 18 inches to that first seat, right? So talk about the transition from moving from the coordinator's seat
Sure.
to the campus coordinator seat.
Along with that, I opened a school during COVID and did all our interviews on Zoom to try to get everybody hired with it. And had to order every piece of equipment and every box. So this chair got really big really quickly. I think you got to build trust in – it's kind of like when you're building your family. You have to build trust in your coaches. You have to be willing to delegate. And then I think the best part about delegation is – and the part where you have to grow the most is a lot of people delegate things away in this job. But you better go back and circle back and make sure, A, you talked about how you want it done correctly, and then B, did they do it the way you wanted? And if not, you can't get upset the first time because you're delegating it away. You have to be willing to talk to your coaches about it and being able to say, hey, man, this is not exactly what I wanted. Here's how it could have been done better. And trust yourself that, man, you got to pay attention. But a lot of times in this business, people delegate things away and then don't follow up with it. And I think that to your assistants or to your coordinators, sometimes that doesn't then show the importance of what you gave away. You don't want to give away just all the stuff you don't like because that means that you're just passing the buck somewhere else. You got to be willing to pass the stuff you do like to help them grow because then that might be turned into a passion of theirs as well.
Good. That's good. I have to make sure that my system is tight because I have to have a system in place that I'm delegating to you. Then I have to give you due dates. Then I have to set on my calendar dates that I'm going to check up, right? So I need to have my checkpoint dates. If I like to make an instructional document with hyperlinks in it, so if you forgot what I said, here's a document and you can go back. If the document isn't clear, I make little videos, stick them in the document. If that's not clear, then come back to me. So that's good stuff, Coach. Good stuff. From a football perspective. So you talked about it from the organizational perspective. From a football perspective, how big is the bite now as a head football coach? To me, getting ready to start year 6, fortunately, all the documents have already been created. Now I just got to tweak it. For an example, I talked to 2 different coaches today because we start school on a Tuesday this year instead of a Wednesday like we've done the last 5 years. So I'm not recreating the wheel now, but I am tweaking what needs to be and having those conversations. I also think that if you're not happy with a product that gets put out there, ultimately it's your responsibility. And I think you have to do a lot of self-reflection. One of the things I really enjoy doing is having our end of the year senior meetings where there are some good, honest conversations that take place of what things that kids liked and what things they didn't. And I think I can learn from those as long as you go in with an open mind. And it's not personal I'm asking the questions that need to be asked to try to help us grow our program. We didn't win a state championship last year. And even if we ever were very fortunate to do it, there's still things we can get better on. And so what that looks like from the very first time we played a varsity game till now is completely different, but that's through growth and talking to our coaches and being able to have honest feedback and accepting that feedback too. That's great. All right, listen, We'll get back to the conversation in just a second, but I want to remind you that here at the Coaches Co-op, we're all about building championship level systems. You are watching or listening to Coach Brian Cope, and you're hearing about championship level systems that he's building. Listen, let me put this on the screen for you. This episode is brought to you by The Path for Coaches, Volume 1, Mentoring. Make sure that you go out, purchase a book. It's filled with gems. You are listening or watching the Coaches Co-op. We have Coach Brian Cope, head football coach and campus athletic coordinator at Lake Belton High School. All right, Coach, what is the hardest thing about the job that nobody really knows?
I'll be honest with you. It's lonely in this up top. And I think, you want to be able to trust people, and you continue to build those relationships to trust them. But ultimately, the decisions you have to make affect not only adults, but also kids. I think one of the very most difficult things is when you have to remove a kid from a program. I think we live in a world where I stress about that for quite a few days, especially if it has to be done on a Thursday or Friday. I worry about that young man the whole weekend. We don't try to remove kids. We're going to give kids chances, but sometimes it ends up happening through decisions that they make. And I think that you got to be able to find your circle of friends. And you also need to find your circle of friends away from coaching because you need to know that there is life out there. And then I think the most important is to have a great spouse that is, I think, independent and likes sports. I think are two good qualities that do help that whole process.
Okay. So what's the easiest thing about the job that nobody really knows?
If you love it, showing up to work every day. It's the summertime. My alarm rolls off at 5:15 and I'm in the office at 6 o'clock. Our kids get here at 7. If you love what you do, and it's easy to when your feet hit the floor, to hit the ground running. And it's been a lot of fun to try to build something special.
Who do you think has the harder job? Coaches or officials?
Based on what I've seen, I think parents don't like either of them sometimes.
True story.
At the end of the day, I think that each job can be difficult. I think that officials are tough because they're trying to do the very best. I've not met an official once that comes out there and goes, man, I really hope I do a bad job tonight. But also same thing with coaches and kids. One of my pet peeves as a coach is one of our, and this is playing from receiver guy, but hey, catch the ball. Hey, you think that kid ran that 15-yard route and tried to run as fast as he could and was going, man, I really hope I dropped this pass. Yeah. Tell him what he did wrong or try to fix what happened in that situation. Or maybe it was just a miss. All right. And that's okay. But I think both jobs have their pros and both jobs definitely have their negatives as well. But to me right now, I want to be a coach. I'm not sure when I retire here in 10 years, am I going to ref? Probably not, but I'll go to the games and sit in the end zones.
Yeah. I tell you what, Coach. So I officiated 5 games a couple weeks ago, basketball games. And when I tell you, I could have blown my whistle every trip down the floor. So it was a very eye-opening experience for me. I was like, oh, wow. Like, really, they really could blow the whistle every time. I see why they don't call everything now. It's the craziest. It's the craziest thing. Coaches have a hard job. Officials have a hard job. I think it's a matter of perspective.
I did have to ref our JV basketball tournaments a few years ago. There was a mistake in the schedule or whatnot. And I'll tell you this, I went from 3-point line to 3-point line, but I didn't go all the way up and down. I at least knew my angles and knew it was a 2-man crew, so it made it easy. But it's a lot of work. And I think it's a different kind of work in both jobs.
Definitely. All right, Coach. If you could be anything other than a coach.
So I would be in finance, working in the stock market on stuff, because I think that involves money, numbers, and competitiveness. And so if I had to go back and do it all over again, I'd probably do that. But at the end of the day, I'm in the right spot. I never, 9 years ago, I didn't necessarily know where Belton was on a map. We had played them once when I was at Consol. But man, got the opportunity of a lifetime. And man, this is where our son was born. This is where I got my first head coaching job. And so this area means a whole lot to me. And it's a growing town. I mean, there's 2 high schools and 4 middle schools now in the town. And so it's been a blast, but I would be in finance, probably working in New York somewhere, I guess.
All right. We're going to call this the Blitz Breakdown Rapid Fire. Okay. So I want you to think about no huddle. All right. Think about your no huddle offense. What is it? Your 2-minute offense?
Yep.
All right. So
we don't huddle anyway. So the whole thing's no huddle.
Okay. So there you go. All right. So we're going to jump right into it. Don't think about it too much. Just try to give me immediate answers. All right. You ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what's your preference? The accounting books or the football playbooks?
Oh, football playbooks. Love every minute of designing stuff and taking advantage of what the defense gives us.
When it comes to preparation, are you a checklist guy or you have some gut instinct in there?
Checklist guy. This job's got way too many things you need to make sure and get done. So I have a checklist and even divide it up by days on what needs to get done per week.
Okay. Early morning work or late night film?
Both, but there is a lot to be said of getting here in this office and not having anybody walk in or distract. You can get a lot of work done during those hour or 2 hours when there's nobody around.
Okay. All right. Who do you think would be tougher to scheme against, CeeDee Lamb or Micah Hudson?
Well, I coached against CeeDee Lamb and I coached Micah Hudson, so it's going to be interesting. I think for what Micah did for our program and what he did on the field, I think he's the most difficult because he was able to move around a whole lot and elite when the ball was in the air. Now, is that selfish? Sure, but I think that's the truth for me.
Hey, you got to
CeeDee's a great player, and we played against him at Consol twice, and they have a lot of similarities.
Okay. All right. Late Travis loss.
Yep. So that was in the state quarterfinals in 2013.
Moment or lingering pain?
I think it's a lingering pain. We had beaten them the year before. And when they had just come off of 5 state championships that they had won. And we were their first 6A loss. And so we had an opportunity to play them again in the 4th round. And I think that they did a really good job of scheming us up. And I think that just one of those off nights that sometimes you have. It didn't help that we threw the ball for 4,000 yards that year and the temperature was 10 degrees outside that Friday. And so that kind of made it a little bit more difficult. But at the end of the day, things happen. You learn from it and you continue to grow.
Okay. All right. What's your preference? Defensive stop or an offensive touchdown?
Defensive stop. Anytime you can play great defense from an offensive side, that makes things a lot easier. You can take a little bit more risks. You can have a little bit you can run a few more tricks, which I think are key. But, man, there's nothing better than having a great defensive game. Now, I would prefer 51-0, but we did win a game when I was at Belton, 86-51, which was the wow. So it's not like we were blowing them out by any means. But I think you have to manage the game accordingly to that's what I love about sports is each game's different. And you got to kind of manage it. We played Leander this year, who had a great receiver, and he gets injured in the first half. And they look completely different. And so we're going to run the ball to win the game and be done and move on and go. Where there's other games you got to get into shootouts. It just makes it fun. Each and every Friday night, you don't know what's about to take place.
Okay. So season sleep, restless nights or calm confidence?
Depends on the day. Sunday night is probably a little bit more restless because I've just gotten a long day in and I'm just kind of making sure we're trying to be prepared in my head. As the week carries on, man, it's a lot more calm. And then Friday is a relaxing day in my head.
Okay. Now this is not a scripted question. So Friday is game day. What does game day look like for you?
Sure. So we're going to get here at I'm going to get here at 6:30 or 7 and watch the JV film. Then at 8 o'clock, we're going to have varsity team breakfast where one of our coaches is going to give a little motivational message based on the theme of the week that we have. Okay. We'll go to class. They'll go to class. They'll come out of a home game. We'll have a pep rally around 2:30. If it's an away game, we'll get on a bus and get ready to go somewhere. I'll probably sneak home for a little bit, go get my coaching clothes, just like to get away from the building for a little bit of time, and then come back. And even to, we have a situation where we have to drive our band and drill team and cheerleaders to away games. So sometimes for me, that's going to get a bus so I can drive I'll drive our football team. Our other coaches will drive the band and drill team to be able to get them there. And we kind of time it out on where they need to get at the right time for us for football. So sometimes that's me going to get a big yellow dog and getting ready to rock and roll. So once again, as a campus coordinator, you got to do what it takes to be successful, and no job is got to be too big for you.
That's it. Okay. Couple more questions. Best advice you've ever received as a coach. Best advice you've ever received.
So it was at a football clinic right after I got my head coaching job. And one of the things that a mentor or a friend told me was, hey, man, it's always going to be there. So don't let your family slip because of it. Because you go home and you could check your email all the time and Lord knows what could come in it. You could study film as long as it'll still be there in the morning. Find a way of when your peaceful time is to get all that extra work done that needs to take place. But don't neglect them. And this past year with Ryan in kindergarten coming over to varsity athletics at 8th period, really made a difference in my life. Being able to get to see him every day. My first year when we built this place, I would go 2 to 3 days without seeing him because we had different events going on. And I really changed and said, hey, I wasn't going to go back-to-back days without seeing Ryan and my wife. And that fixed years 2 through 4. But year 5 with him now on campus some days or most days makes it a blast. Our kids know how important he is a part of our program. And they also know if they're injured, they're probably going to be on Ryan duty. And they'll be over at the tackling dummy with him as he's running through there.
Yeah, that's good stuff. All right, Coach, describe your coaching philosophy in one word.
Passionate. And I want to make sure that we do everything possible to be successful. And it's never personal. We tell kids that all the time, man. Listen to the message, not the tone. But we also want to follow up with them and care about them. Every homecoming game, I'll go back and I'll text for Lake Belton. I'll go back and text those kids throughout the whole program and just check on them and see how they're doing in college or seeing how they're doing in trade school or seeing how they're doing in the workplace. We tell kids all the time, man, we're not in this just for 4 years. We're in this for the rest of your life, and we'll always be there for you.
We're coming to the end. This brings us to crunch time. Crunch time works like this.
Yeah, I think first it starts with a pen and a whistle. You better always have that. Everybody gets a whistle most of the time, but you need to have a pen because you need to be able to write things down. And especially you want to write it down so that you can come back to it. Might not be the time or place to be able to talk to it. You also need an understanding spouse. Man, this business is tough. You got to be able to have that. And then you got to have a drive and desire to be successful. You got to make sure that you're passionate about what you do. Don't just show up. It doesn't matter what you do in life. But man, we only get one go around at this. Make sure that you're using all the time to the best of your abilities.
That's a great list right there. You definitely have to have drive and desire, because if you don't have drive and desire to do what we do, you're letting a lot of people down. All right, Coach, 2 shots. 2 of the most difficult or foulest things you've experienced as a coach.
Yeah, I think adults not following protocol makes this job really, really tough. We expect 15 to 18-year-old kids to act a certain way but you'll be amazed what 22 to 62-year-olds can do as well. And so I think that sometimes is the most difficult to be able to have those conversations, especially when something's been done wrong or something is acted inappropriately or whatever it may be. Yeah. I think that's one of the most difficult ones. I also think sometimes parents get so passionate that they with officials. And I think, man, we want to make sure over here at Lake Belton, along with across Texas and the United States, hey, man, those people are trying to do a job. And like I said before, nobody's going out there to say, hey, man, I hope I really screw this game up. Same thing with coaches, same thing with kids. I've never doing this a long time. I've never felt one person walking on a court or walking on a field going, man, I hope I do really bad today. It's kind of like walking into that geometry test that my wife teaches. Hey, man, I really hope I fail this. I don't think any kid has ever thought like that. Now, they might think, hey, I'm not going to be as successful. But, man, just making sure that we understand, hey, everybody's doing their very best or they're trying. Otherwise, they're not they want to get everything out of it that they can.
That's it. That's it. So, listen, adults, follow protocol. Come on, adults. Be nice to the officials. It's the adults. It's not the kids. It's the adults. All right, Coach, this brings us to the end. This is and one. One thing that you would like to share before we get out of here can be anything. What do you have for us, Coach?
Man, coaching's got to be a passion. You got to enjoy every minute of it. It's not just something to check a box. It's not just something to get a stipend. That stipend's not worth it in the grand scheme of the hours. Man, take pride in what you do. And, man, our youth need us more than ever. And it's just simple check-ins that I enjoy doing just to make sure that these kids are being successful. But, man, our kids in this generation, they're going through some of the toughest times around. They make one decision and it's blasted on social media. They catch one pass over somebody, that DB is getting blasted all over social media. Making sure that our kids understand, hey, life is more important than the game. But at the end of the day, one of the things I like to tell our kids is, man, your actions matter more than your words, and making sure they understand what those actions truly mean and trying to make a difference to help young men and young women be more successful down the road.
Coach Cope, this has been outstanding. So if you are watching or listening, make sure that you listen to this again, because there's lots of systems in here. There's lots of gems. There's lots of things in here. There's great books that you can use to help energize you. Listen, thank you for joining the Coaches Co-op. Big thanks to Coach Brian Cope for sharing his journey and his wisdom with us. If you are walking away with new insight or new energy for your team or for your program or for yourself, then we have done our job. Coach, I'm going to get us out of here. Hang back with me for a sec while I get us out of here. Everybody else, I need you to hit that like button. And remember, at the Coaches Co-op, coaches do what most people can't. Until next time, I'm Coach P for Coach Cope. Y'all be easy.